Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Youth Ministry Q&A Live. Hope that you guys are having an awesome day today. So if you're watching this or see the thing, this is a live video, so I'll be engaging with hopefully some live people who are going to jump on here, maybe talk about some things. So I just want to keep that in mind for you folks that are going to be watching this later on, because some people say, well, Paul, these videos are awfully long. Well, sometimes because it's a live video, if I'm answering a live question or something like that. So I don't mean it to necessarily go so long, but I want to be able to answer questions and some questions that people want to ask. So if you look at the length and say, well, this is going to be a bunch of questions I'm going to answer. So anyway, be sure, by the way, if you're watching this, that you subscribe. I would love for you to be a subscriber. If you're not one, join the community, be a part of it, get your questions in there, and I could do a live video just like I'm doing today. That's what I did. I asked the community, what would you like to talk about? And I got some great questions. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. I'm going to be answering those questions. So you can get your questions answered. Feel free to leave your question down in the comments below. So let's see here. I need to make sure I have my stuff off there so I can get the live thing so I can watch people there. So if you have a Youth Ministry Q&A question, please go ahead and do that. I also want to point out that in the chat room, I think it's over the little chat box over here, if I'm pointing the right way. Nope, it's the wrong way. It's this way. Over here, in the chat box over here, down below, if you say, look, Paul, I think you're doing a great job. I think you're answering some good questions. There's a little $sign there. You could actually put a little tip up and say, Paul, thanks for doing a good job. Here's $1 or $5 or $2 or whatever you'd like to put in, and that will come towards supporting the channel and supporting the ministry of me equipping youth workers. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump into today. Real quick, before I do that, there is still time. There'll be a link down below that if you are still interested in the Youth Ministry Playbook, there will be a link down below for that. It is filled, packed with all kinds of little articles and calendars and all that kind of good stuff. So I just want to encourage you that it's still January. You can still make some, this the best year of youth ministry ever, and you can still make a fresh commitment to your youth ministry. So it's right there. You can do it. Doesn't matter if January's over or not. All right. That's that. Let's jump into today's questions. And if you have questions as we go along or want to respond, feel free to go ahead and hit the chat box over there and let me know what you want to talk about. All right, so these questions today are from Sam. And Sam, I want to thank you for submitting your questions today. And here's some of the questions that he has. Question number 1, how have you kept students during their senior year? And this is a really good question because, we tend to see some drop off, right? Kids are getting ready for college. Kids are getting ready to be a part of a different life or different community outside their parents' worlds and parents' lives. And so they're trying to figure things out. Now, for me, if it's your first year, right, and the investment is not there, so I never in my first year, sometimes even in my second year, I didn't. Hello there, Dr. Flamingo. In my first and second year, I didn't keep very many juniors and seniors because I had not made the investment in them early on. I didn't know them. The best time, your cycle is that if you invest in your middle schoolers now, that in 5 or 6 years, you'll have the investment with them that they are willing to stay with you for those junior and senior years. And I just did an article in my series called The 8 Qualities that every student wants in their youth pastor. And yesterday I posted it, and it's on engagement. So I'm going to put a link down there this morning. So you can find it and go read that article about what I mean about engagement and why that leads to further success down the road. But in keeping your junior and senior students, in reality, what I've tried to do and what I've tried to foster in students is I make deep investments. That means whether that's showing up to their games, whether that's showing up to whatever it is they have going on, even in their junior year, that you can still make an investment. I don't want to make it sound like, well, if you don't do anything on, if you're there your first year, like you can't keep your juniors and seniors. What you can do is still build relationships, still, and let them kind of decide whether or not they're going to hang around. But many times they do not. But that doesn't mean that they can't or won't. So it doesn't mean we don't try. It doesn't mean we don't attempt to do those things. But for me, one thing I've always tried to do, and one of the keys to this, is developing student leaders. And you can do that at any phase, whether it's your first year or third year or fifth year. And by the way, the longer you stay, the easier it gets. More kids for me stayed around longer because I made the investment early. I stayed longer, and I made sure that I made student leadership a priority. So when I had students that were maturing physically and spiritually, I gave them more and more responsibilities. And I always shared vision with them. That's probably one big key there, is sharing vision with students, because they want to hang around where vision is. They don't want to hang around just to do church. They don't want to hang around. They want to do the things. They want to do the stuff. And so a lot of that just comes from me giving them more and more things to do. You know, they say if you want somebody to show up, give them a job. And so I agree with that. So when kids who I noticed that had certain gifts or talents or abilities, I would ask them to do those things and participate in that, whether that's everything from, any piece of the youth meeting that I could do, they could do, and probably do it better. So I made sure that every week I was saying, hey, would you do such and such next week? Would you lead the game? Would you do the thing? Would you do this? And when they are invested in the ministry, they are more likely to show up, especially juniors and seniors. And the longer you go along, the more they're committed to you and your vision, and then the overall youth program, because you're showing them the value of their investment. So I hope that answers your question. And I think that's anybody else that wants to chime in, by the way, you just feel free to chime in on those things. Also, so let's see, second question. How do you make sure they're still in church after youth ministry ends for them? Well, and I actually wrote this answer. I said, I don't, God does. Because the amount of connection a youth pastor or a youth leader has is limited, right? Everything really falls back to the parent. Now, we want to create environments that students want to participate in, right? They want to be a part. And so we try to create that environment where they feel welcome at whatever age they are. The issue becomes if you're in an aging church and kids start feeling uncomfortable because the church does not reflect kind of where they're at. If the messages on Sunday morning aren't relevant, if you have zero control as a youth pastor as to what your senior pastor is going to do, or who they are, or how the service runs on Sunday morning. So, for me, all throughout ministry, I tried to connect students to people in the church so that the connection wasn't just with me. Over the years, they'd have a connection with people on missions trips, for camp, things like that, camp counselors, other ministry opportunities within the church, overlapping ministry so that they could participate in ministry with various ministers, so that their relationships were not completely focused on the amount of other young people. And yes, you got to have other young people they can connect with. So the more young adults that you have, obviously the more comfortable to some degree they feel there. So I tried to make sure, though, I did connect with that. But I also, there are churches, obviously, demographically, they're in areas where there are more young adults, bigger churches, things like that. But that doesn't mean that just because they have an easier job in the sense of maybe connecting because they have youthful worship and, youthful all that's part of that. But you can still create opportunities for young adults to have a young adult ministry. And don't wait for it to happen. You need to go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to create something. And it may not be the best version of it right now, but I'm going to create something that transitions kids. So maybe it's I would do graduation getaways. And we would take kids camping. These graduates, I would take them camping before we did the Sunday, before we did the graduation Sunday. I would take juniors and seniors, allow them to come, and I would take them camping, or take them whitewater rafting or something like that, to kind of like for that last hurrah, to where I get to make one more another investment in their life that says, listen, I really want you guys to hang around, and I would like you guys, if they're available, if they're spiritually mature enough, if they're there, I make them leaders. I want to make them leaders. So one of those things to being a leader in the youth group, if they feel like the value has been there and they were invested in, then they would want to make investment in other kids. So I would make sure that I would say, look, give back. Give back to what has been given to you. And sow back into the ministry. And once again, I encourage them to do it. I can't make them do anything, but I can try to create opportunities for them where they can use their gifts, talents, and abilities for the Lord. That requires me to get out of the way for them to be able to do that and own some of that. And so basically that's what I try to do. I try to make them leaders if I can make them leaders. I connect them with other people within the church so that I am not their only connection within the ministry. I connect them with the pastor best way I know how. I make last minute investments so that if they're going away to college, hopefully they'll find a church. But if they're staying locally, they'll feel comfortable enough being in the church that they'll stay around even if they don't have a ton of other young adults to hang in with. If they have 5 or 6, I did things at my house. I opened up my home to them. And so I would try to have something there at least one Friday night a month where we had game night, and we did cookouts. We did all kinds of stuff. And so a lot of that just evolved and came out of that. So the answer to the question is, how do you make them? You can't make them, but you can create opportunities, just like the ones I just mentioned, about creating an environment that is inviting for them to come back into, to making strong investments to where they feel that need or that call within their life to give back into the ministry. And so that is my answer to that. The third question that Sam had was this. And this is totally unrelated to maybe the other two, but it says, is it important to have youth group names? I would love to know, if you're live with us, if your youth group does have a name, either leave it in the comments if you're watching it later, or if you're live, go ahead and leave it over there in the chat box there, and let me know what your youth group name is. I would love to know. But they ask, is it important? I would add, poll the audience here. Do you guys think it's important? Is it important to have a name? And I wrote down no and yes. My first answer is no, because there's, back in the 90s, just silly names like, we're Extreme Youth Ministries, we're, whatever it was. It always just seemed silly, or seemed, I don't know. A lot of names just seemed out of touch with culture or with other things. And I know we're supposed to be different. I know, but listen, there's a difference between different and cheesy. And sadly, there's a lot of cheesy youth group names. I would rather have no name than a cheesy youth group name. I'd rather be no name youth group than a cheesy one. But I said yes to having a name because, you could buy, you ask yourself this question. If you go to the store, is it okay that your food that you're going to buy has no labels? Like, there's ketchup, there's mustard, there's this. Does it matter to you whether or not these things have names or not? I would say that more than likely it does, because when you're looking for that product or that thing you're looking for, well, what are we doing? We're eating with our eyes. We're saying, okay, that looks pretty, or we're buying with our eyes. We're saying, look, there's the label, there's the ingredients, there's the things, and all that goes into it. And so, so I think names matter in the sense of branding, because you want to be able to tell people what to come to. You also want to be able to build a picture, right, in people's minds of what to expect. If your youth group is called Connect, well, guess what? That immediately puts an image into somebody's mind of what they can expect. That, look, we're going to connect with the Lord, we're going to connect with each other, we're going to connect with the church, we're going to connect with mission, whatever those things are. I think that is important to that degree, that in naming your youth group, you have the opportunity to be able to brand it and be able to put it out into the world with a graphic, with a thing, with a this or that, so that you can be able to amply describe who you are. And I just think that's an important thing in that regard. Is it important you have a name? No. And yes, because I think you have to be able to put out there to people what you're about, and the best way to do that is with a name and a picture and an image that creates a story that people want to invest in. They want to show up because of what you're doing. And you dictate that to some degree by the name and by the picture or the image or the logo. what is Nike without the swoosh? What is Apple without the apple? It's just computers, right? You think of the things you own. That's what you own because you enjoy a certain name of product, and names are correlated and logos are correlated with the value they bring. And so I say in that regard, yes, names are valuable because it connects people with what is valuable, what you find to be valuable in your youth ministry. All right. Last thing, what does your last question in from Sam? Sam, once again, thanks for all your questions. And if you have questions, be sure to leave them down below. If you didn't see my other one, by the way, I'm going to put a link up here to another. It's the 12 questions, I think the 12 youth ministry questions of Christmas, where I answer some more questions. If you want to see that, that'll be up there. You can see some more of that. But this question here is, what does your nightly morning youth gatherings look like? Well, since I am not currently a youth pastor, and more than likely will not be one because I kind of retired from that because I just felt like I want to hang with you guys. I want to do a better job of equipping and investing in the next generation of youth workers. But I can tell you this, that I do youth meetings now because I'm here. You can see the background's different. I'm in the back room of the office of the retreat that I'm at. Still creating meetings, still creating those things, and some of the principles are still the same. If you're interested, though, I did do a series called Youth Meeting 101, and I will put a link to that up here, so you can check that out as well, and just check that out of how I break down my youth meetings. You can watch that whole series. I think it's 5 or 6 videos. They're short. I think they're 5 minutes and under. You can check that out. But my meetings were super basic. We had a game or two. We had announcements. We had offering. We had worship. We had the word, and we had altar time. Now, once again, it depended, and in the first video, I talk about what is your meeting about. And it really depends what our meeting was about that night as to what the format was. If it was an outreach night, it was different. If it was a fellowship night for us as believers, that was different. It depends the season. Is it summer? The meeting was maybe a little less structured. If it's the fall, it's maybe more structured because now they're in a structured environment in school. And so they have a more structured youth meeting because it goes along with that. So as to your question there, it's like I said, my structures are super basic. I don't try to do too much in a meeting, and that's probably one of the biggest flaws I had as a youth pastor, was that I would try to cram too much into one meeting. I think it's okay to start a little bit late and end a little bit early. That your best stuff is a 20-minute or 30-minute time frame, and you start 10 minutes, let people have 10 minutes of fellowship time and hang out, and at the end, 10 minutes of fellowship time at the end, kids getting to know each other. Sometimes we structure meetings so tightly that kids don't get each other. They're following the program, but they're not really getting to know each other. They're not spending time in worship long enough. They're not spending time at the altar. And I like to create the space to be able to do that as far as basic youth meetings. So, but I hope that answered all your questions there, Sam. I did my best to answer those. If you have comments, by the way, about some of these things, maybe some of the things you do, or you have further questions, please leave some comments down below. Sam, glad that you're here, buddy. I'm glad that you made it, and I hope that I answered all your questions today, Sam. I did my best to do that. You're welcome to ask me further questions. By the way, that reminds me, if you're interested, because this is what I do on a regular basis, every 2 weeks on a Monday night, I have what's called a Ministry Mind group. And, that's like a mastermind group, but I'm no mastermind. I'm a ministry-minded guy who simply wants to, I'm not a guru, I'm not any of those things. I'm simply trying to help guys work through what it means to be a good youth pastor and run a good youth ministry so kids can find Jesus. That's it. And if you're interested, and if anybody's watching this and you say, man, I am interested in some coaching, I will leave a link down below to where you can get to that, and you can see if it is for you. In fact, I think I have a video for that too. I'll pop that up there as well. You can check out the video where I'm talking about the coaching, and you can see if that is something for you. But that is it for today, guys. I want to say thank you guys so much for all of you that have shown up today, hung out. Once again, if you're not a regular here, you're not a subscriber, hit the subscribe button, or maybe over here. I may have a little link at the, here where you can do that and check out maybe more videos up here as well. And I just want to thank you guys for hanging out today. Appreciate you spending some of your morning with me. So that's it for today, guys. I will catch you guys hopefully next Thursday morning. 9 a.m., and we'll talk some more. So, all right, that's it for today, guys, and I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day, everybody.